Hello everyone, myself Sukrishna. In this video, I am going to explain how to create queues in UiPath Orchestrator and how to link queues from one folder to another folder. So let's get started. Basically, queues are available at the folder level. If you want to create a queue, you need to select the folder where you wanted to create. So here I am selecting the main folder. So here we have an option queues. Select the queues. Then here we have an option add queue, and then we need to select create a new queue. So in the name section we need to mention the queue name. So I'm mentioning the queue name as test. The description is optional. If you want, you can mention the description, or else we can keep it as a blank. Here we have two additional options are available. The first one is enforce unique references. Basically, while adding the queue items in the UiPath Orchestrator queue, we will going to mention the reference, right? So if we want to set unique reference for all the queue items, we can enable this option. So if you are not selecting this enforce unique references, so you can add a multiple queue items with the same reference. If you select the enforce unique references with one reference, we can add only one queue item. The second additional option is store in encrypted format. Whatever the queue items that we have added in the UiPath Orchestrator queues, by default those will be saved in the UiPath database. If we want to encrypt your queue data in the UiPath database, we can enable this option. So by enabling this option, the way of accessing the queue items in the UiPath Studio will remain same. So we don't need to apply the decrypt logic to access the queue items. The only thing will changes is in case if you are applied any insights for these queues, so those will be impacted. Two auto retry options are available. So the first option is fail items. So let's say you are processing the queue items. So there was some system exception is happening due to some application is down or selector is not found. So any kind of system exception, right? So if you want to retry the failed transactions, you can enable this option. So if you enable any of these failed items or abandoned items, we need to mention the max retry number. So this should be from 1 to 50. So whatever the count that we mention in the max retries, those many times the queue item will be retried. So the second option is abandoned items. When you start processing the queue items, that status will change from new to in progress. While processing the queue items, in case of any system exception is happening and if you are not set the status properly, that status remains in the in progress. So after 24 hours, whatever the queues are in progress, those will be changes to abandoned state. If we want to retry the abandoned state queue items, we can enable this option. So whatever the max retries that we have mentioned in the max retries, those many times the abandoned state queue items will be retried. Here the labels and advanced settings are optional. If we want, we can mention the details or else we can keep it as a blank. These details will help us to filter the queues. So here in the label section, I am going to mention the label name as admin, and to add the advanced settings, we need to click on this plus icon. So here we can mention the key name and we can mention the value. To add the one more key and value, so again we can click on plus icon and then we can mention the key value and we can mention the value, right? Then here we have a schema definitions for specific data, output data and analytics data. Basically schema definitions means what kind of data you are expecting for this queue. So you can mention the what is the mandatory key details are required and what is the value type should be. If you want, we can mention the regex for the expected value. So let me show you how this schema will look like in the UiPath documentation. Now I am in the UiPath documentation. This is the sample schema, right? So here we can mention the required key details and the expected format, and in case if required you can mention the regex expression for the expected value, right? Here we have a SLA option is available. Basically, at the time of adding the queue items in the UiPath Orchestrator queue, we can set the deadline option. If you set the deadline for the queue items, so as per the deadline, the queues will be processed. In case if you are not set the deadline and if you enable the SLA option, as per the SLA, the queue items will be processed. Here we can enable this option, then we need to choose the process, and then we need to mention the date, hours, minutes, within how much time we need to complete the queue items, right? In the same way, we can set the risk SLA as well, right? We have a retention policy is available for completed queue items and uncompleted queue items. And in the action, we have delete and archive. So if you select delete, the queue items will be deleted, and if you select archive, so the queue items will be going to saved in the storage bucket that we have chosen in the target bucket, right? Then we need to choose the retention duration. So here for the completed queue items, the duration is from 1 to 180 days. So if you select 180 days, that means it will going to maintain the 6 months of data in the queue, and before 6 months of data will going to delete or archived in the storage bucket as per the option that we have choose in the action. For uncompleted queue items, the retention duration is from 30 days to 540 days. So as per the retention duration that you have selected for uncompleted queue items, so the data will going to be deleted or archived in the storage bucket. I am going to create three queues, one for without using any option, and one for using the unique references, and one for using the schema. So first let me create a queue without any option and click on add. So the queue got created, right? So now let me create a new queue with the unique reference. Then let me enable this option, and here I am going to mention the label as reports. I'm going to mention in use as a key and value as false, and click on add. And let me create another queue by using the schema. So here I have created the schema. So let me open the schema that I have created. So this is the schema that I have created. So let me open in the notepad file. So here the required details are name and ID, and name should be in the string format and ID should be in the integer format, right? So let me select the schema file, right? Click on add. So if you want to filter the data, so the first thing here you can see by default it will reflect only 25 items. In case if you want to increase or decrease, so you can click on this drop down and then you can select the number, right? If you want to search the queues with a queue name, you can use this search text box. So here you can type the keywords, and based on that the queues will be filtered. So here I am going to search the keyword with schema. So let me search, right? So only one match is found, right? So let me search with another keyword reference, right? So based on the keyword that we will going to mention here, accordingly the queues will be filtered. We can filter the queues by using the labels as well. So here we can click on the label drop down. So you can find the all the labels that we have mentioned at the time of creating the queues, right? So you can select the label, and based on the label selection the queues will be filtered, right? And based on advanced settings details that we mentioned at the time of creating the queues, with that details also we can filter the queues. So here in the properties we can click on this drop down, so you can choose the key and value details. So based on the properties also we can filter the queues. So in this entire table we have many columns are available. If you don't want, we can remove these columns, or if you require more columns we can add. So here we have a column drop down is available. So if you select, those columns will be reflected here. If you unselect, those columns will be removed. So here I am going to remove the properties, labels, right, and then average time. So accordingly the table will be changes, right? Now let's see what are all the options are available for the queues. So click on these three dots. So here these many options are available. If you want to modify the queue details like a name, description, labels, additional details, schema details, right? Retention policy details, SLA details, you can click on edit, and then it will navigate us to the edit screen, and then according to the requirement you can modify and then you can update, right? Then if you want to set a trigger for this queue, you can click on the add trigger. Then it will navigate us to the trigger screen. So based on our requirement, we can set the trigger. Then we have view transactions option is available. So if you click this view option, so you can see all the transactions that you have added for this queue. So monitoring queue, that is something for the inside perspective. View chart, it will going to give us the average execution time for the business exception, system exception and successful one. So it will going to give a chart for us. Upload items means if you want to upload the queue items manually, we can use this option. So I am going to upload the queue items manually, and I will going to explain what is the unique reference and what is the schema and how the schema and unique reference will work. So here in the first queue item, so we are not enabled any option like a unique reference and schema, right? So here I am going to click on upload items. So we need to create a CSV file, and let me show you the CSV file that I have created. So this is the CSV file that I have created. So let me open the CSV file. So here I have mentioned ID, name, address, salary and a reference and priority, right? Here we have two options are available. Process all independently means each row process will independently. If any of the row failed, those will be failed and the remaining will upload in the queues. If you select all or nothing, if all are success, then only the queue items updation will happen, right? So here I am going to click on browse and select the CSV file that I have created and click on upload, right? So then click on three dots, click on view transaction. So here you can see the queue item has been created with reference 1-re and the status is new. And if I click on these three dots and view details, so here are the details that I have mentioned, right? So if I try to upload the same transaction again, it will not going to give any error. Here we are not getting any exception. So I try to upload the same details again with the same reference. So it is not giving the exception because we are not enable the unique reference. So let me go to the view transaction. So with the same reference, the another queue details got added, right? So as we are not enable the unique reference, so the multiple queue items we can create with the same reference. So let me do the same activity for the test unique reference and see what will happen. So the first time we will not get any issue. So let me go to the view transaction. So the new queue item has been added. And if I am going to upload the same CSV file again, we will get the exception. Right? Because here we have enabled the unique reference. So here we can see the exception message duplicate reference, right? So if you enable the unique reference, it will not going to allow the duplicate reference, right? Now let's check for schema. So here I'm going to click on upload, browse and select the file, click on upload. It got uploaded because so in the CSV file I have mentioned the required details. So in the schema I have mentioned the name and ID. Now I am going to change the type of the data and see what will happen. Here in the ID section I am going to change the number to number 1, right? Let's say and try to upload the CSV file again and see what will happen. So we are getting the exception and saying that violates the specific data JSON schema, right? So if you select the schema at the time of creating the queue, while adding the queue details in the specific queue, we need to follow the schema format. So whatever the mandatory details that we mentioned in the schema like key names, value data type and the value format, those formats should match or else we will get the exception. We can mention the additional details as well, but the mandatory details should be in the expected format, right? Now we have a manage links, so this will help us to link from one folder to another folder, and the remove option will going to use to delete the queue items, right? And let me go to the view transactions. Now let's see what are the options are available for the queue items. So click on the three dots. View details means we can see the what are the specific data that we have added, and we can see the output data and analytics data, and we can see comments and history. By using the edit, you can modify the reference number, priority, postpone date, due date, and even we can modify the specific data. We can download the JSON, we can modify the necessary details. By using the upload JSON, we can upload the modified JSON, then these details will be changes, right? Then you can click on the save. So here I am going to change the priority to normal to high and click on save. So the data has been changed, right? Here we have a clone option is available. If you want to create a new queue, we can use this clone item. So the clone option is available for the statuses like new, failed, success and abandoned state queues only. So here we can change the reference and then we can change the priority, postpone date, due date. The same thing like we can download this JSON. So let me download the JSON, open the file, right? So here I am going to change the JSON ID number. I am changing to 2 and I am going to change to Hari to Ravi, and then I am going to change the salary to 20,000. Click on save, right? And then I am going to change to normal and I am going to change the reference number to Ravi. Here I am going to override the JSON by clicking the upload JSON and override. So here is the downloaded and modified JSON, so I am selecting that one. So here you can see the details that I have modified in the JSON file, those are reflected here, right? So if you click on create a new queue item, so the new queue item will be created. So these are the new queue item, right? And let's see what are the remaining options are available. So if you want to delete, you can use the remove option. Here we have two options are available. View creator job means whatever the job that is added the queue items, so it will navigate us to the specific job. View executed job means whatever the job is utilize this queue item, it will navigate us to the that specific job, right? To link the queue from one folder to another folder, we can do in two ways. The first option is we can click on the three dots for the queue and then click on manage links, right? Then you can select the folder. So here I am selecting the HR folder and click on update and click on continue. So if I go to the HR folder, so we can see the test queue got created. And if I go to the view transaction, so the same details that we have created in the main folder, the same queue items are available. So if you add or remove any queue items in the any folder, those will be reflected in all the folders. So here I am going to create a new queue item. So click on clone. Here I am going to change to Ravi to John. Click on create a new queue item, right? Now I have created a new queue item in the HR folder, and if I go to the main folder, so here in the main folder in the test queue the new item got created, and here in the main folder I am going to delete the queue item, right? So now we have three new queue items, one deleted item is available, and if I go to the HR folder, so the same details are available, right? So if you delete the queue in any folder, the deletion will happen in that folder only. The deletion will not happen in all the folders. So let me delete the queue in the HR folder. Click on remove. Right now the queue got deleted. So if I go to the main folder, so the test queue still exists. Right? The another way to link the queue from one folder to another folder is first we need to go to the folder where you wanted to link the queue. Then click on add queue, and here we have an option link from other folder. Here you can see all the queues that are available in all the folders. So you can select the queue that you wanted to link in the current folder and then click on continue and click on link. The queue has been created, right?